Welcome to episode 62 of Norse Myths, Legends, and Folktales. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and today we learn about the demise of the Volsungs and the birth of Sigurd in part 1 of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer. When Helgi won his kingdom and his bride, Sinfjotli returned again under Hunaland. Thereafter he set to warring in distant realms, and he achieved widespread renown and won much treasure. Now it chanced that his eyes fell with love upon an alien maid of exceeding great beauty, and he sought to have her for himself. But he was also desired by the brother of Borghild, Sigmund's queen. So the two fought together, and Sinfjotli slew his rival and laid waste and plundered his land. Thereafter he returned home and brought tidings of his deeds. Wrathful was Borghild, and she sought to drive her brother's slayer from the kingdom, but Sigmund would brook not such an evil doing. So he made offer of blood treasure to his queen, and she made pretence to be appeased, knowing well she could prevail not against the king's will. Yet in her secret heart she brooded over her brother's death, and resolved to be avenged upon Sinfjotli. So she held a funeral feast, and went round with the mead horn among the war men, and had gathered all in the hall. When she asked Sinfjotli to drink, he feared to partake, and Sigmund seized the horn and emptied it. A second time was the horn filled by Borghild, and a second time Sigmund took it from his son. But the third time Sinfjotli must needs drain the horn himself, and when he did, he fell down and died, because the drink was poisoned. Thus did Borghild take vengeance on her brother's slayer. Great was the grief of Sigmund when Sinfjotli was dead. The war men in the hall feared that his sorrow would kill him. Loud mourning was heard there at the funeral feast, and Sigmund, who had grown old, lamented long for his son. Then tenderly he took Signy's offspring in his arms, that Volsung of Volsungs, and bore him through the evening dusk towards the first gray beach, with purpose to take him to the opposing shore. He perceived a small boat. In it was a tall old man, grave of aspect, gray-bearded, and having but one eye. A round hat was drawn low on his forehead, and he wore a dim blue cloak mottled with gray. Men tell it was Odin, but Sigmund knew not who it was. Unto him the grey ferryman spake, bidding him lay Sinfjotli's body in the boat, but he said there was no room for Sigmund, who must needs go round the firth end if he would reach the opposing shore. So Sigmund parted with him and hastened over the beach. Ere long he turned round to gaze upon the boat as it went over the waters. Suddenly it vanished from his sight. So passed Sinfjotli, son of Sigmund and Signy, whose grandsire was mighty Volsung of Odin's kin. Sigmund turned homeward. He entered the hall sorrowing. He drave forth Borghild, remembering how Sinfjotli died, and she became an outcast, so that ere long she perished. Then Sigmund sought another bride, Jordis, daughter of Elim. She was comely in his eyes, and he sent messengers to her sire, beseeching her for wife. Now King Ling, son of King Odin, whom Helgi had slain, desired also to have the fair princess. Her sire would favor neither Sigmund nor Ling, and gave the maid her choice, and she vowed she would wed the Volsung. 'Twas thus it befell, and a great marriage feast was held. Then Sigmund returned to Hunaland with his bride, and King Elim went with them. Wroth was King Ling. Tidings he sent unto Sigmund that he would war against him and shatter the power of the Volsungs. So he assembled a great army and set forth to wreak his vengeance and capture Jordis. Sigmund feared the issue of battle, for the stronger force was with Ling. But his courage faltered not. Great treasures have warriors gained. But Odin gave Sigmund a sword. Although he had grown old, his faith in Guram was strong. Yet he deemed it best that Jordis should be concealed, and with a bondmaid and bearing much treasure, the queen was given safe retreat in deep forests. A great shore battle was fought. Sigmund contended fiercely against overwhelming odds. None could stand against him, and for a time it seemed that Ling could not prevail. Sigmund's arms were red with blood of his foemen, nor did he get a single wound. Then entered the field through Ling's warmen an old and one-eyed man. He wore a blue cloak, and his round hat was drawn low over his brow. In his hand was a great spear, and he went against Sigmund. That was Volsung's fateful hour. Odin desired his death. The god shook his great spear, and when Sigmund smote it, the sword Guram broke in twain. There, upon Ling's war men fell upon the hero, and gave him his death wound. King Elim, who fought by Sigmund's side, was slain, and the Volsungs' army was scattered in flight. The shoreland was red with the hero's blood. Numerous as dead leaves were the bodies of the slain. King Ling waited not on the battlefield. He pressed onward with his army towards Sigmund's hall, and when he reached it, he could find not Jordis, nor any treasure. So search was made throughout the kingdom, and although Ling found not the bride he sought, he was made glad because that the Volsung power was ended, and the last of the line was slain. But he recked not of the hero unborn, and although he set an alien ruler over Hunaland, the glory of the Volsungs was fated to return again in great splendor. Now, when night fell, Jordis went towards the battleground, and found Sigmund where he lay grievously wounded and awaiting death. She sought to give him healing, so that he might avenge her sire. But Sigmund told her that his wounds could heal not, for Odin desired his death, and his sword Guram was shattered. "I have fought while Odin willed it," he said, "and now 'tis his desire that I should die." Then he counseled Jordis to keep the broken sword, that it might be welded for her son unborn, and he foretold that the babe would grow up to achieve renown which would live throughout the ages. "Now," said Sigmund faintly, "I am death-weary, and must go hence to be with my kin." All night long Jordis sat beside the dying king. She soothed him, she watched him tenderly, and when dawn was breaking golden in the east, she dosed his eyes in death and wept over him. Then seaward she gazed and beheld a fleet of Viking ships coming nigh to the shore. Hastily she bade her bondsman change raiment with her, saying, "Henceforth thou shalt say that thy name is Jordis." The leader of the Viking horde was Elv, son of King Hjalpek of Denmark. He came ashore with his warmen. He spoke to Jordis and her maid, and was told of the hidden treasure, and that he took speedily on board a warship. The queen he took also, and her bondsmaid. Then Elv returned to Denmark, and ever he deemed that the bondsmaid was Sigmund's queen, but Hjalpek's spouse, when she beheld the two women, suspected that the bondmaid was the nobler of the two. To the king she spoke secretly thereanent, and Hjalpek fell to questioning the pair. First he addressed her, who pretended to be the queen, and said, "How knowest thou the hour of rising in winter time, when the stars are clouded over?" The bondsman answered him, saying, It hath been my wont to drink heavily at dawn, and I awake athirst." "A strange custom for a king's daughter," the king remarked. Then Yalpik asked of Jordis how she could tell when the hour of rising came, and she answered thus: "My sire gifted me a magic gold ring, and it turns ice cold on my finger when the hour cometh to rise in the winter time." The king laughed. "No bondsman, sire, giveth gold rings. A king's daughter art thou. Of this thou shouldst have told us heretofore." Then Jordis made confession that she was indeed Sigmund's queen, and thereafter she was honored and well loved in the hall of Yalpik. When her son was born, the name he received was Sigurd. A Volsung was he indeed. Bright were his eyes, and his face was kingly, and Yalpik took pride in him. He grew up to be strong and fearless. A warman's skill had he ever, and Volsung pride, and he had great wisdom, and was eloquent of speech. His foster father was Rajan, the wonder smith, brother of the dragon of Fafnir, and he gave the lad instructions in many arts, and in the mysteries of runes, and taught him many languages. One day Rajan asked the lad if he knew that his father had left great treasure, and that Yalpik guarded it. And Sigurd said it was guarded for him, and he had faith in the king. Then Rajan urged him to ask a horse from Yalpik, and when the lad did, the king bade him select the one he desired. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more tales. Many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.